Hi everyone! Easter is upon us, so I am making some 3D Easter egg cookies today. I started out like I typically do and I rolled out a piece of dough. I'm using my medium-sized guards, which are about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm gonna roll a piece of dough flat, and I'm using my egg-shaped cutter to cut this out. I bought these egg-shaped silicone molds from Amazon and they worked perfectly for this cookie. They came on a sheet of 8 and I just cut them out individually because it was easier for me to wrap my piece of cookie dough around it. So I baked 2 for each cookie and I'm molding it gently around the edges of the mold so I'm not really cracking my dough, but I'm getting it pretty firmly placed around the mold. Once I have these all done, I'm baking at 350 degrees for about 12 minutes. And when they came out, they were nice and golden and they really pop off very easily. I just kind of squeeze the back and they come right off the molds. I linked these molds in the description. If you click it, it'll take you directly to them. When I fit the 2 halves together, it really didn't look like an egg. It was a little bit bigger. So I'm taking a small serrated knife and I'm cutting a little bit of the bottom off of each one of these. I'm just kind of sawing back and forth and going really slow and keeping my fingers out of the way so if it does slip, the knife is not going to cut me. And I'm just taking off the bottom. And I'm gonna do this for each of my halves. And now once they're cut, they fit together much more like the shape of an egg. So now it's time to fill these. I have some stiff white royal icing and a little butter knife and my various fillings. So I am going to start out with a favorite in my household, Sweetarts Jelly Beans, the Fave Reds. I'm just putting a small handful in and then I'm gonna take the other half of my egg and add a little bit of the royal icing around the flat edge, making sure I'm just getting it really on the edge or as close to that as possible. And then I'm going to seal this up. Once I sandwiched them together, I used that butter knife again and pulled the icing around to seal up any of the openings and just smoothed it out. I also filled one with my personal favorite, the Cadbury cream egg. And if you know me, you know that I do not discriminate. I love all 3 flavors equally, but for the sake of the demo, I went with the classic. Can't go wrong with the classic. So I'm doing the same process, just adding some royal icing around the edges, and then I'm gonna sandwich these together. And then for the last one, I grabbed some coconut and a little bit of green food coloring, mixed it up kind of like a little festive Easter nest, and then I'm adding in some Sweetarts Jelly Beans that were so delicious. This was all I had left, so I used them for this cookie, but if you can find them, I highly recommend you try them if you haven't. And once these were sealed up, I gave it about 30 minutes to let them sit before I dunked them in color. For the dyeing of the egg piece, all you really need are the 3 primary colors, so some red, yellow, and blue, and then white. And I had to make sure this was pretty thin because you want it to sort of, run around the egg and you get all those great colors blended together. So you need to add quite a bit of water and make sure that the food coloring is pretty runny. This looks perfect. So I have my 3 primary colors ready to go, and then I need to prep the white, and I want to make it the same consistency that I made the colors. So I'm gonna add quite a bit of white to this. And I'm adding it into my measuring cup. This was a 1 cup measuring cup. I'm putting it right into here because this is actually what I'm going to use to dunk my cookie into as well. And I chose this measuring cup specifically because my cookie fit in it completely, and it would also cover if I pushed it down. I'm not going to have any icing splashing over the edge. And it was already pretty deep too. I'm not going to put it in a shallow bowl, so that I'm going to need a lot more icing. I didn't want to waste a ton of icing. So this was a perfect size for my cookie to fit into completely for dunking. And one other thing to mention, you'll notice I have my cookie drying rack right to the left-hand side, and I have some parchment paper underneath it because I am going to dunk my cookies and then lift them right onto the rack to dry. When I was adding my colors, I took a little spatula and I just drizzled a bit of color on the top of the white icing in a kind of a crosshatch pattern. I started with one color and then I laid the other 2 colors on in the same way. To dunk them, I just took my cookie and placed it in and rolled it around the top of the icing. I had a fork nearby to help me lift it up. And then I let the icing drip off a little bit and I placed it right on the cookie rack. You can add more color after each dunk if you want to keep the colors very vibrant, or you could dip them a second time for a more muted pastel look. I did a little bit of both. On this one, I didn't really care for the color pattern, so I just gave it another roll and it completely changed up the look of it. Now we have a winner. And that's all it takes. I let these dry completely overnight and then I smashed the living daylights out of them. It was really fun, so I feel like it would be a great fun thing to do with the kids, or just if you need to take out a little bit of aggression. Springtime aggression, it's a thing. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and leave any questions you have in the comments. Happy Easter, everybody!